Dr. Sarah Jensen unlocked the entrance to Fairview Psychiatric Hospital's Ward D, a special unit for patients deemed a risk to themselves and others. She eyed her clipboard anxiously. Marcus Dalby, patient 47. Once a leading physicist, Marcus had inexplicably spiraled into madness. As she walked down the corridor, Sarah felt an overpowering sense of dread. The walls seemed to close in, and the flickering fluorescent lights overhead did little to quell her unease. She reached Marcus's cell, the door of which had multiple locks and a small reinforced window. Sarah peered inside. Marcus was scribbling equations frantically on sheets of paper. Taking a deep breath, she unlocked the door. Marcus looked up, his eyes vacant yet intense, as if he was glimpsing alternate dimensions. "Marcus, how are you today?" she inquired, maintaining a professional demeanor despite the palpable tension in the air. "Numbers, Sarah. The numbers are the key," he muttered, resuming his scribbling. She glanced at his work. Mathematical formulas were interspersed with strange symbols that looked almost occult. It was unlike anything she'd seen in her years of practice. "Marcus, what is all this?" She reached for one of the papers. "Don't touch that," he shrieked. "You'll ruin everything." Sarah retracted her hand, startled. Marcus was becoming increasingly volatile. She took notes, contemplating medication adjustments. As she did, she noticed Marcus was now staring at her, an odd smirk on his face. "What are you smiling about?" she asked, uneasy. "You're part of it now," he whispered. "You'll see." A sudden, icy chill swept through Sarah. She realized that for the first time in her career, she was afraid of a patient. Sarah hurriedly left Marcus's cell, locking the door behind her. She felt an irrational sense of danger and wanted to be as far from Marcus as possible. In her office, she reviewed Marcus's case file once more. Nothing about his past indicated susceptibility to mental illness. What had driven him to this state? She called Marcus's wife to inquire about any changes in his behavior before his institutionalization. She was met with silence on the other end. "Mrs. Dalby, are you there?" Sarah questioned, only to hear a sudden piercing scream and the line going dead. Panic surged through Sarah. She had to get back to Marcus's cell. A dreadful premonition gripped her. Rushing back to Ward D, she found Marcus's cell empty. The papers, with their enigmatic symbols and numbers, were strewn about, some burnt at the edges. The alarms blared and the ward went into lockdown. Marcus was nowhere to be found. Sarah returned to her office, trembling. On her desk was a new sheet of paper with Marcus's handwriting saying, "The equation is complete. Thank you." She reported the incident to the authorities, who initiated a full-scale investigation but found no traces of Marcus. He had vanished into thin air. Sarah was left haunted, pondering the inexplicable events. She feared Marcus had somehow transcended the boundaries of reality itself. Days turned into weeks. Despite an exhaustive search, Marcus remained missing. The hospital was abuzz with rumors and theories, none of which comforted Sarah. Then, one evening, Sarah received a cryptic email. It was a mathematical formula similar to Marcus's work, but with a note, "Execute this, and I'll return." Torn between fear and curiosity, Sarah input the equation into a scientific computing software. She hesitated before hitting execute. A shockwave went through her computer, and suddenly, Marcus appeared in her office, as real as ever, thanking her for completing his work and setting him free. Stunned and terrified, Sarah was left to grapple with the impossible. Had she aided in a breakthrough or unleashed something horrifying onto the world? She felt a mixture of dread and guilt wash over her. Her mind raced through the ethical implications of what she'd done. Sarah took mandatory leave from work to gather her thoughts. Each night, she battled insomnia, haunted by Marcus and his cryptic equations. During her time off, she decided to delve into some obscure physics texts, trying to understand what Marcus had discovered or created. She stumbled upon theories about alternate dimensions and the fragility of reality, which only deepened her despair and confusion. Eventually, Sarah returned to work, carrying the weight of a truth she couldn't share. She wondered if Marcus was still out there somewhere, manipulating the fabric of the universe itself.